welcome to another season of the Penn Sports Network. I'm your host, Stephen Langdon Jr., joined to my left by Jake Slobodnik and to my right by Jeff Hart. And guys, I'm very excited to get into a new season. I'm sure you guys are too.
It's about time that we get back to this. I missed it.
Dude, I couldn't take it. I was getting stir crazy over the summer. I was just thinking about the Crimson Hawks. I was thinking about our sports, commentating, getting back, being with the boys, working for the Penn. I can't wait. We got a great year ahead of us.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot of new content coming your way. We have a couple of opportunities that we're probably going to get into as the weeks go on. But first things first, the summer pass, a lot of new news. Of course, the IUP Athletics switching to Nike from Under Armour. I'm sure everyone's excited about that. Huh?
Absolutely, Steve. I've already started preparing. Got some nice little Nike kicks to start off the year. High tops. I am in the mood. Let's go Nike deal with IUP.
Ain't nobody want to see your feet. Get that off there. Get them nasty
Except
boats
those
off
creepy
there.
men on the internet. They want to see my feet.
Yeah, get them boats off there. And personally, I'm more of an Under Armour guy myself. I'm kind of mad about the deal. Nothing against Nike, but I love Under Armour, the brand. They're really starting to get big. I love them. They just launched Project Rock, which is an excellent line of workout wear. They got Steph Curry. They're starting to get up there with brand notoriety and recognition. So I really feel like they're a really ascending company. So I'm not against Nike, but I kind of like the Under Armour.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how the new uniforms and everything look. But speaking of uniforms, we're moving on to the athletics program as a whole, and there was big news this summer as 4 IUP men's basketball players signing professional contracts overseas. We had Dante Lombardi. He's going to be playing his trade in Portugal. We got Kobo Diaz playing his trade in Spain, going back home. We got Marko Kravacevic going back to Hungary, and Willem Brunwick going back to Netherlands. Guys, very exciting news. This huge for the athletics program, huge for IUP sports, and huge for the campus just in general.
Well, what a homecoming for 3 of the IUP's best big men. You got Kobo in there. We all kind of knew. I know Steven and I had talked about it in the early goings of the season, but I was talking to Steven. It comes to no surprise to me to see that Kobo went professional overseas, especially in Spain. Especially in the Euro leagues for basketball, isolation play is huge there. It's still huge. China, it hasn't really caught up with the modern NBA because the amount of talent in the NBA is so stacked compared to the rest of the leagues in the world. But let me tell you, Kobo's step back, his isolation game, his long range ability will translate well over there. It really, out of all of them, he's the one that came to the least surprise to me because I really think we all saw it coming.
Well,
Yeah.
Diaz also was saying in our interview with him that he did want to go play professionally, and we did bring up the idea of going back to Spain, and that's exactly what he did. But Jake,
I was just going to bring that up. How Kobo in our interview mentioned that he would like to play for his home nation. And, it's no surprise. He has untapped ability. We all saw it. You could only watch maybe 5 seconds of him on the court, and you would see just how much of a professional ball player he was in college. He was
definitely fits
one of the best.
It definitely fits the Euro game, like Jeff alluded to before.
You know who I think could be a sleeper for who could be spectacular? Kravacevic. Because if someone could work with him and get him to bulk up and really become a monster on defense, he can shoot from the 3. Everyone, a big man that can shoot is really the most prized position in basketball right now, especially with the NBA transitioning into that position in this basketball. We see it with the Greek Freak. We see it with Ben Simmons, guys like that who are these 6 foot, 7 foot tall phenoms, just freaks of nature. So if someone could work with him and he could get on the boards more and start getting some more blocks, oof. Because, you also got to look at, because I feel free to read the Penn, guys. I hope you would. But, I wrote an article about this a couple weeks back, and to be quite honest, if you look at both centers' numbers, whether it be Kravacevic or Brunwick, their numbers are severely kind of padded down because they both split minutes and reps. So we didn't really get to see a full showcasing of their latent abilities.
Yeah, and you did a great job of saying that in your article, that both did split a lot of minutes between each other because both of them did play the same position. And when you have 2 stud players that can play the same position, Coach Lombardi had a bit of a struggle, when do we play which player? Because you have one that's an offensive playmaker, and then you got one that's a defensive playmaker for the most part. So it was just about deciding who split the minutes up evenly.
Well, yeah, and we saw that later into the season, especially into the playoffs, all three of us when we were commentating for Com 360. We really especially saw they started the lineup with Brunwick. They wanted to get him going on defense, but then about halfway through the first quarter, they would switch Kovacevic in. They'd kind of almost split the quarters and kind of split it evenly between the two. Whenever they needed an offensive pickup, they obviously got Kovacevic on the floor. Whenever they needed they needed a stimulus package on defense, they put Brunwick in there. So we really got to see them come into their own and develop in those areas, but I'd like to see both of them work on the areas of their game that need the most help. So obviously for Kovacevic, I'd like to see him on the boards more. I'd like to see him get more physical, more dominant in the paint. Now, Brunwick, I want to see more mid-range jumpers. I don't think the three is in Brunwick's game. I really didn't see that. He needs to work on free throws, and he needs to work on his mid-range and getting a post move that he can execute. He worked on that post hook all year. I know Jake and I talked about it all the time when we commentated. If he could get that post hook down, be unstoppable.
And there were times that he was able to get that post hook down, and when it did, it worked out well. It was beautiful to watch. But then it seemed like when he was heavily contested, he sort of went stiff and couldn't really execute. And I think that was one of the major hindrances in him. And I think that's what led to him and Kovacevic splitting a lot of time. Was Bromwich got sometimes not choked whenever he had a lot of contention on him, but it's like he almost didn't know what to do with it, whereas Kovacevic, he knew how to execute it because he came from a D1 program, an excellent program to boot. He was able to, he think quickly, think critically, how to avoid that, or post hook, and like you mentioned, he's able to shoot. When you got a big guy who can shoot, that's going to help your game plan out immensely.
Well, and I think the last guy we haven't talked about is we haven't talked about Lombardi, arguably one of the most catalyzing players on the Crimson Hawks last year. I think he's going to bring a sense of showmanship and a flair that country has not seen from their basketball players, because he has more of a out of all the players, his game translates the best to the modern NBA. That gunning, three-point, half-court offense, just pull up. He can kill you by pulling up from three. He can drive in the paint. He can give you assists, average 5 assists last year. I mean, he's so deadly, but I think the thing that he adds the most to and what makes it such the Showtime Lakers, we talked about Magic and Kareem, those Showtime Lakers, it was the fast break, because Magic would get him going on defense and give it to Kareem. It was kind of a race. It was just flashy. You had the skyhook. Lombardi has that flash because he gets him going on defense. We saw a couple of games. He'd get a couple of steals going on the fast break, either get a three or a big assist.
His defensive game is very underrated.
Underrated. He's really a pickpocket.
He's very elusive, like you mentioned. He's a pickpocket. He with his size. See, that's something that a lot of people put past him, is that he may be small, but he can fit in those cracks. That he's able to steal the ball very quickly and make the offense not really realize that he was able to steal it. And by the time they do, he's halfway down the court, up for a layup, and that beautiful finger roll layup, smooth like butter. It's just a great transition from Lombardi, and I think I agree with you. I think that's one thing he's going to definitely bring over to Portugal. I will say that was very shocking to me whenever I saw that. Just because
he's not as gifted physically. Because out of everyone who went professional overseas, I'd have to say Brunwick is the most physically gifted. I think Kobo has the most intangibles that you can't teach, like especially his footwork and stuff when he works in the post. You can't teach that. But like when you look at just physical freak of nature, you can't teach size. I mean, you look at Brunwick, he's just a big dude. I mean, Steven, you got to interview him a couple times. I mean, the dude is just massive. And he's not just tall.
He's a wall.
He's just big. He's not
He's
just tall. He's all around
pure muscle.
Pure muscle. Big dude. So if he could get his offensive game, I could see him being almost like a Dwight Howard kind of guy if he could get that mid-range game going, especially in the Euro leagues and stuff like that in other countries. It's a lot different. The floor is tighter. It's a different game.
Yeah, well, not only in the basketball world, but in the football world, we had Mike Pietropola. He's going to be playing in Italy for football.
Ooh.
Very, very interesting to see that. Kind of a jack of all trades in a way. Came in as a quarterback, switched to running back, wide receiver a little bit, then transitioned to being a defensive back, playing more as a safety per se. Did a little bit of kick returning, so really could play literally anywhere. I know Jake and I got to see him a little bit the last 2 years. So, Jake, what's your idea on Pietropola?
You see, Pietropola, you laid it out already. He came in as a quarterback, transitioned to a running back wide receiver option, then went to defense, and he played special teams. He's a utility guy, and a lot of teams look for that utility guy because, hey, say someone goes down, they need someone who can fill that role easily. And Pietropola, with his God-given ability, he's able to go in. He's got speed. He's got great awareness. He's definitely a good leader on the field. We saw it how many times he was able to intercept the ball, He wasn't even watching the whole play commence, and then he was able just to turn around in half a second, just reel in the ball. And on special teams, he can block, and he can return. He's a dual threat on special teams, and he's just as effective on defense. I haven't really seen him on offense because that was before our time here, but I would imagine that it would equal his ability that he brings on defense and special teams. I think he's going to flourish over in Italy. I wish I had a little bit more knowledge in Italian football.
Yeah.
I think that'd be awesome, but
I would say not one of the corners of the world known for football, but definitely
Yeah.
good for him. He can make a living over there, make some good money. I mean, a lot of people don't realize a lot of these guys we see in college, D2 and above, Division I, some of those guys in the lower Division I schools, a lot of them do end up playing professionally, just not in America because of how competitive it is and how well developed of a country we are. We can devote the resources to help train our athletes to be the best.
Exactly.
But in
Yeah,
other
I
countries
mean-
where those resources aren't as plentiful,
so
you
they
can make a
recruit from
living.
here.
Yeah.
They recruit from
Well,
here.
not only that, but he can do extremely well and maybe play in one of the lower leagues, maybe like a
XFL.
Arena Football League, XFL type ordeal in the United States. So, this is just a stepping stone for him, and I'm sure that's how a lot of D2 talents go, just because most of them don't quite get into that NFL range. But if you're able to, kind of build upon your game and get to that next level, maybe build a little bit more muscle, then you can transition even coming back over into a different league.
Well, and I think it goes to speak miles about the athletic, I guess the amount of resources that a lot of, American universities and schools devote towards their athletics programs. And it goes to show that, I hate when some of my friends, who go to Duquesne or who go to Pitt or some of these schools and they go, oh, those D2 schools couldn't even match up even against the worst D1 school. I disagree with that. The men's basketball team last year only lost by 10 to Kentucky. And yeah, they probably weren't playing their hearts out, but still, that's a D1 top 10 school in the nation. And they played their butts off. So you mean to tell me Duquesne's going to beat them? I think Duquesne would lose, but I know for sure they'd give them a run for their money. It goes to show that even a Division II collegiate athlete is still one of the best athletes on the planet, because in America we have the money, the resources, the technology to develop these guys to the max ability. And also it goes to show the direction of our focus as a country and our sports. That's such a big part of the American way, is distracting us from reality, and that's sports. It brings us together.
And that leads us to our next topic, which is the IUP football team. And there are a lot of D1 transfers on this football team. We have our starting quarterback this year, Quentin Maxwell. He's from Ohio University, even started games at Ohio University. So we're not getting, some random guy off the street. We're getting a starter Division I quarterback, and he's looked phenomenal all spring. Unfortunately for Javon Davis, he's going to have to sit out a year, but I think that's a good decision if you're going to have someone like Maxwell, who the offense Coach Tort even said that the offense has been, building around Maxwell, and they've kind of taken him, and they respect him as a quarterback and as a player.
Well, I think one of the biggest things Maxwell is going to bring to the team is a sense of leadership, coming with that sense, kind of like a chip on his shoulder. He came from a D1 school in Ohio, and that's no scrub school. That is a bigger known D1 school. They play against some big schools. They have good recruiting. So he's definitely going to bring that sense of, work ethic, ability, experience, all that, and hopefully develop a guy like Javon Davis, guy who we saw streaks of greatness and brilliance from last year, and help him develop and be the guy he needs to be next year. Because I agree with you. I think it's a year too early to put Javon Davis out there, not because he doesn't have the ability, but you want to make sure he's ready and can hone that ability. You don't want to have a year where you're off developing your quarterback when you still have the talent around him to be a contender.
Well, you're gonna be saving him an extra year,
Yep.
which means that he's able to play. You're essentially saving a year of eligibility, so he will be I'm 100% positive he'll be the starting quarterback after this year.
Oh, I don't agree. I don't disagree. I really think that Javon Davis after this year will be the starting quarterback. It's just, I'm a big fan of the number 2 guy. And last year, Javon Davis, I think, really showcased his talents, especially when he filled in for Lenny Williams. If Williams wasn't having a good game, or IUP was absolutely decimating the competition. We won't name any opponents, Millersville, but Javon Davis put up some strong numbers in the short time that he was there. I just wish that, he would have got that opportunity this year. But like you said, it's a good thing because he's going to have an extra year of eligibility, and it'll help fill the void in case, we can't find someone else. But
IUP, we have to remember, is replacing a literal legend in Lenny Williams. This guy was, the amount of records that this man has is phenomenal. So whoever the next quarterback would have been, you're going to be having to fill some pretty big shoes.
Well, and don't just look at last year's tape on Lenny Williams, especially because I was a critic of his first last year, because it was just my first year watching IUP football, and I'm like, this guy's got a big name, and I haven't really seen the haven't really seen the game behind it. But as the season went on, you got to see those flashes of brilliance. Lenny Williams was an excellent quarterback. He had wheels on him, got open, and I got to see that brilliance. It was just a little spotty at times, which wasn't necessarily all his fault. There were different games and situations that led to that. But definitely, yes, Stephen, definitely a big name to fill, super athletic, just someone who was crucial to our success last year as the football team.
They have a very, very strong team going into this year as well. Very big weapons left on this team.
Lots of defensive men returning. A lot of the
Absolutely.
more of the linemen on both sides returning, and that's going to be a big thing because that's going to put up some nice barriers for each side of the ball. It's going to give some protection not only the quarterback, but it's also going to allow some more units from the secondary to come in. And I know I'm going all over the place, but it's good to establish a fine foundation with the linemen. So, and I think IUP is going to establish that this year, especially on defense.
Yeah, well, let's just look at their offense just to begin. We have Don McNeil, one of our best, if not the best wide receiver, and then we also have Justice Evans.
Let's not forget Justice. That's what
Evans.
I'm saying. Let's not forget about the workhorse himself. IUP would not have been nearly as successful without that run game last year. Last year, running the ball, we were just that's what allowed our passing game. We just hit it up the middle and just killed it.
And another thing, Samir Bullock's returning.
Yep,
Absolutely.
Another goal line threat. I could see him coming in, and because Justice Evans is more of the long run guy, whereas Samir is more of that big guy that can get through you on a fourth and short situation or something.
Samir is more of a balanced running back, while Justice Evans, a little bit shorter, can sneak in between the tackles, and a dual threat.
Yeah.
Both of them are dual threats.
And the good thing is that running committee still has a lot of returnees as well. The only one that we really lost was Chris Temple, but even then his time was limited last year. And that role was filled very well by Justice Evans. And I don't even think we need to describe, we don't need to tell the audience just how effective he was. He was he was a good slot receiver. He was a good running back. He was just great all around. I can't wait to see him this year. Hopefully he continues it.
Well, one of the best things you can do for a new quarterback on any level, whether it be collegiate, high school, professional, the best thing you can do is give them an offensive line and a running game. Because if you don't give them a running game, you're really one-dimensional. All they have to do is give you weird, different, more advanced coverages, give you some different blitz packages. But when you have a run game, that helps split the reps, helps keep you rested, helps keep the defense on its toes, gets you a little more relaxed. You're not as tight. You might throw a couple more deep down the field. You might have a little more faith in your quarterback. So I really think the most effective part of this year is keeping Samir Bullock and Justice Evans healthy. Because if we can't keep them healthy, we're not going to have as much success with Quentin Maxwell. And Maxwell might be just an absolute stud and could carry the team. I don't know. I haven't seen him play yet. But
he's more of a he is more of a balanced quarterback. Did have around, I think he had 12 touchdown passes to 6 interceptions in his career. It did have 6 running touchdowns. So he is more of a balanced quarterback. He's not going to be able to run past defenders like Lenny Williams, but if he needs to carry the ball, he will have to.
And
go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say that's a good thing because I think Coach Tord has that knowledge, seeing that he has a nice balanced offensive scheme, and if he can bring in a balanced quarterback that doesn't try to do everything by himself and doesn't try to look flashy, it's gonna gel the offense a lot more. And that's why I think it kind of fell apart last year, is because Lenny Williams tried doing a lot more with himself, whereas Quentin Maxwell, I know he comes in here and he's gonna be able to spread the ball around as much as possible. So it's gonna be more beneficial this year on the offensive side. Sorry, I interrupted you, Jeff.
No, you're good. I think you all make great points. I think it's going to be a very interesting year to see. I think what Quentin Maxwell will do if he, transitions well, obviously, in his condition and does well this season coming out of training camp and has the system down, because it can be hard transitioning to a new thing. Because not only is he going to have to learn a new system, a new coach, he's going to have to learn a new team. He's in a different place. He's not home anymore. So that's a lot to ask of somebody. But if he's more pass heavy than Lenny Williams was, I think we can go further. Not because I'm saying he's better than Lenny, but Lenny last year seemed to struggle deep down the field in some moments. Like he had the wheels on him. He could get out of situations, but I didn't see the deep downfield accuracy as much. It was kind of spotty at times. But if Maxwell can be consistent with that deep field game, it could completely change the look of the team.
And I think the one player that many people aren't looking at is freshman of the year last year, Kayshawn Carter. Absolutely phenomenal player. His return yards already has him 3rd all-time in IUP history.
And he was just a freshman last year. I think he's gonna top the list this year in his sophomore year.
Yeah, this man is an absolute beast. Rose up the depth chart. We saw him. He was probably around the 6th, 7th wide receiver entering last year.
I thought he moved up to 5th at least.
Yeah,
I know he's a slot option at times.
Yeah, well, he moved I was getting to that point, is that he did move up to around a slot wide receiver towards the end of the year. I mean, he didn't have a whole ton of catches, but he only started in the slot a couple games.
Well, and let's not forget about JoJo Gaz. He's returning. Talk about some
Absolutely.
size. I was about to
That's
say,
right.
JoJo Gaz, they have him down at 220. Big dude, definitely can get up there and take the ball away from somebody and become a physical force, and especially blocking, because I think that's one of the most underrated abilities of a wide receiver that people don't look at. But Gaz can give you some good blocking, so it's just we have a lot of veteran guys returning on the receiving side of the ball.
And let's talk about some of the unsung heroes a little bit. The tight ends, Grant Smith and Zach Kelly. They were able to provide nice blocking. They can catch. They can do a little bit of a check down whenever you needed it. Get the first down if you needed it. I think those are some of the unsung heroes on offense. They don't really get much praise because all the wide receivers and running backs always outshined them. But I don't know. I think they're going to be very effective weapons on the offensive side, both on blocking and receiving.
And then we have the defense. We have J.R. Stevens, phenomenal defensive back, was an All-American last year. He's going to be returning for his final year. I mean, big expectations for this backfield. A lot of returning players and that defensive line. And, I mean, I really don't even know where to start on this defense. They have a lot of returning players. Their top two middle linebackers are returning in Amendola and Davis. So, I mean, even the defensive line. The defensive line is stacked once again. So, a very strong defense going forward. I mean, first game is this Saturday, too, against New Haven. So that's going to be fun and exciting.
And Steven, just to check with you, where can we listen to that again? Where can we catch that game?
So you can catch that game on streaming online, which Jake will be doing.
That's me.
On IUP TV, or you can listen to WIP FM, where it's looking most likely like Jeff and I will be doing the game, but it will be on WIUP FM.
90.1 on the dial.
Yeah.
There will be no link on IUP Athletics because Jack Benedict is massive seniority, so he gets the link. So it's WIPFM.org, 90.1, as Jeff said, on the dial. So just in case you couldn't find the link, that's where you can find Steven and Jeff.
Yeah, so it's going to be very good. And then new news this morning, Ryan Rebels, one of the people in the athletic office.
Great guy, does a lot of great work.
Fantastic, man. But he sent out a memo today saying that tailgating is now allowed with alcohol if you are 21 and over, of course. But you can read about that in the new edition of the Penn that's going to be coming out this week. But, I mean, tailgating could bring a new kind of thing to IUP. I know Slippery Rock is very big on tailgating and, kind of the pregame festivities. But IUP now joining the ranks.
To be quite honest, I think the good outweighs the bad. And normally I'm not that person when it comes to the topics of drinking and stuff like that. But to be quite honest, I think we need a jolt to get our attendance up for football. I mean, basketball, we have nothing to qualm about. I mean, we're ranked 13th in Division II for basketball attendance. But whenever I went to the football games last year, I mean, it was just there wasn't as many people as there should have been, especially for the amount of talent that we have. And I think this was a move by the athletics department in order to get a jolt to attendance because we pour so much money into our athletics program, and you can see that in the apparent success.
Well, even 2 years ago when we were ranked number one for the majority of the season in Division II, we still had trouble, gaining that support, even when we were dominating teams day in, day out.
We need to provide as many incentives as we can to get people to come. And to be quite honest, as long as they have enough, police presence or campus police presence, and as long as they keep any, rowdy people down and get rid of any of the obvious offenders for public drunkenness, I feel like this can be a very good thing as long as they enforce the rules well enough that as long as no one's too publicly intoxicated, as long as everyone conducts themselves in a good way, I think it'd be a great thing for IUP. It brings a lot of campus pride and spirit.
Absolutely. Jake, anything you'd like to say on the tailgating?
I just want to, owe it all to the new athletic director, Todd Garzarelli. He was I was able to sit down and interview him prior to the semester starting, and he was definitely he noticed that there was a lack of presence at IUP events, notably football games. And he told me he would do all he can in order to get more people to come out, and I like the steps that he's taking in order to get more. There's the tailgating policy now.
Just getting the new job within the last year, now we're making big strides.
We just hired him a few months ago. It's not like this guy has been here a while. I mean, he's already making big changes.
Well, he's got a good resume behind him. But look at what he's doing now. He's enforcing a tailgating policy in which he's going to bring people out. He's bringing a small time country artist for family weekend coming up in the next few weeks. So he's doing all he can to bring out people into the games, and I just like what he's doing. He's making the smart decisions.
A lot of promotional events happening this year, and I'm sure we are looking very forward to working with Mr. Garzarelli
Absolutely.
And I mean, that is one of the things that we are going to try and do our best to do. We are trying to work out a deal to work more with the athletics program and, get more athletes to come on here. And because, I mean, that's really what people really want to listen to.
Yeah.
We don't want to just be sitting in front of the camera talking about sports all the time. We want to be interviewing the athletes, making them more personable with not only us, but just the campus as a whole.
The university, we need to build that connection and relations, especially not just because of the Penn, but just the communications department as a whole and journalism and all that. We need to kind of build a bridge because sports and the media are synonymous with each other. You can't have one without the other. So I feel like as we build that connection, it'll keep getting better.
Yeah, so big things coming for us. Big things coming with the athletic program. But final words?
Let's get this party started. IUP 2019-2020, TPSN.
Hey, I mean, I'm just happy to be here. I think we're going to have a great year, some great athletics programs. I mean, already we're off the start with football, basketball, volleyball. We got some good sports going on right now. And then spring, I mean, we got a lot of great stuff. Lacrosse, cross country. I mean, there's a lot of good things going on. I'm just looking forward to doing it all with you guys, being back to the grind again.
If I can slip in a shameless plug right here. If you want to catch all up to date in news, in rumors, whatever it is I'm trying to speak about, go ahead and follow us on Twitter at @official_TPSN. We're going to be more active this year on that as well as on the Penn.org. So if you're not already following us, first of all, what are you doing? Second of all, go ahead and give us a follow on Twitter. That's the only way you're going to know about us and what we're doing. So,
yeah, so that about wraps it up from us. From your host, Stephen Lane Jr., Jake Sponick, Jeff Hart. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good weekend.